podcast. I'm Paul James Caden, and today on the show, we are going to be talking about the healing frequency. What is it, how it affects our lives, and how it can help us, as I always talk about on this show, rising in thought, rising in consciousness, getting above the fear, the chaos, the division, and the hatred. And joining me today very graciously is Mr. Jiulio Consiglio, which is the author of the Healing Frequency book. Jiulio, thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Paul, thank you for inviting me to the Infinite Journey podcast, and I appreciate being here.
So tell the folks a little about yourself. I know you're the author of the Healing Frequency, but tell the folks what you would like them to know about Jiulio, and why you're
sure.
the guy to do the job today.
My spiritual journey began at the age of 19. I read a book or two on spirituality. One of them was, I believe, Transforming Your Dragons by Jose Luis Stevens. But the one thing that was missing at that point, and what I describe now, is a desire, or a white hot desire, to transform. 19 to about the age of 33 is where I experienced years of tremendous anxiety. And despite that anxiety, I never let it stop me from doing what I wanted to do. I did the typical thing. I got educated. I actually went to school in the States. I'm from Canada. I got married only to have that crumble 15 months later. I had an older brother who passed away with cancer, which had a great impact on my life. And shortly after that marriage had crumbled, in the following year, I myself had a cancer diagnosis. Now, you would think that would have been enough to create or cause a shift in me. It wasn't. It was about a year later, in the fall of 2005, where I had an experience with a night terror. And that is when I describe I hit my lowest point, and I literally cried out for another way. And shortly after, I experienced what I described as an inner shift. I then went on to write my first book, Challenge Your Thoughts. And shortly after, I started doing speaking engagements. And then a couple of years later, I wrote The Healing Frequency. And most recently, I just had published with Llewellyn Worldwide, Open Your Third Eye, Activate Your Sixth Chakra, and Develop Your Psychic Abilities, which will come out in June 2021.
Awesome. I have to admit, I've had your book, The Healing Frequency, on the back burner for like a while now. So I think I got it when it first came out, but I'm an avid reader, and I always have like so many books in chronological order that I must read. And you're coming up in a couple, but I know enough about the Healing Frequency that I think it's very interesting. So tell some folks what it is. Is it something in us? Is it something outside of ourselves? Is it both? What is it, and how do people utilize it in their lives, and what is the benefit of doing so?
Quite simply, the healing frequency is a vibrational frequency. Some describe it as inner stillness. So it's that state of mind where there is no thought. And although there is no thought, there is an intelligence, an infinite intelligence or presence that one awakens to. Some describe this also as 5D consciousness. But the healing frequency, in essence, is a vibrational frequency that is present within all of us. I can't give it to you. I can't give it to anyone. It's within all of us. It is that inner being, that silent witness, that is non or never suffering. So it is our innermost being. When we react to the outside world, that is the conditioned or the egoic mind doing that, and we experience suffering. But there's that part of us the authentic part of us, the true self, the highest self, that does not suffer. And it is actually, it's a state of mind. You're operating, uh, uh, the word that comes to mind is you're beyond faith, beyond knowing. You're simply in that space of nothingness. And in becoming nothing, you realize your oneness with everything. So, in terms of healing and what it can do for our lives, is inner peace is reflected from this vibrational frequency. And this inner peace is not attached to anything in the outside world. It is simply the beingness of being one with your highest self. Um, the potential in the healing frequency, or the potential in inner stillness, or this state of mind that is actually, it's actually no state in essence. It's a moment by moment of living through oneness. But the potential is incredible clarity and understanding. The power of forgiveness is realized. Miracles happen at this level of awareness. I experienced, for example, shortly after, about 6 or 8 months after my cancer diagnosis and having gone through treatment, I actually experienced a vision of healing myself sitting in a wheelchair and experiencing a crumbling wall with the word ego written across it, demonstrating transcending or going beyond the thinking mind. So the potential in it is almost beyond words, because it's a formless state. So it is something, though, that one can become aware through meditation, through awareness of the now, where we've been conditioned to either be in the past or the future, somewhere between that. So it is going beyond the conditioning of this world and realizing the truth. And when I say the word truth, what I mean is who we are beyond physical form, beyond thoughts, beyond emotions.
Yeah, that is awesome, because that is something that, I talk about on this show quite often as well. Is I don't know if you've ever read the Urantia book.
It doesn't sound. It's not ringing a bell. Who wrote it? Do you know?
This is a book that was developed. It was printed in 1955, and it is said that there was a psychologist by the name of William Sadler. And I won't get into the whole big story here, but it's said that this was a book that was given by celestial beings as a fifth, epical revelation to humanity, giving us the story of, the cosmos, humanity, our spirituality, God, angels. Very interesting. It usually has a very strong impact on people when they start reading it and they say, "Oh my God, this is what I've always believed and knew, but never heard anybody talk about," or maybe I myself was afraid to say it to my peers, my pastor, my priest, my friends, my family. Uh, Very interesting book. I would definitely say, check it out and see if it has that resonating with you. It's Urantia, the Urantia book, and
I just
it allegedly has no human author, no human workings or ego in it. It's not a book like the Bible or any other writings that says this is what you must believe. It really speaks about uh, God being the individual experience for each and every one of us, and it's different for each and every one of us. And so
I actually
creating a, oh, go ahead.
I actually wrote down the name. You said William Sadler because the book sounds incredibly intriguing.
Yeah, his name isn't on it. He's just the guy that ran across someone who was in trance one day, and these messages started coming through, and then there were apparently manifestations, and this whole manuscript was given, and they published it. No one got any copyright, money for it, or what's the word I'm looking for here? No one made any money on it. It
It
was just
was
supposed to be for the people, to learn more of the truth and walk more in love and divine truth and experiencing God for themselves. But in that book, which is really awesome when you're talking about the healing frequency, it talks about this fragment of God that's in each and every one of us. And the book said it is called the divine thought adjuster. So it's that fragment of the divine that's the still small voice within that just gently always tries to guide us in the right direction in our actions and our thinking and our spiritual growth. And that actually the way we can tune more into that is just sit and listen and commune, empty ourselves. And that's something that I do every day. And like you said, uh, doing that, the things that come to you, the little words, the impressions, the images, it is very healing. It's very conducive to spiritual growth and seeing the world in such a different way than you've seen it before. And I think you're almost kind of talking about the same thing because, as the Urantia book says, experiencing that divine fragment within yourself, experiencing the presence of God is different to each and every one of us. But yet you're explaining the same thing that many people, including in the Urantia book, have talked about for centuries. So I think that's awesome. And I would hope people would kind of like grab a hold of that right out of the box and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I do want to get my ego out of the way. Maybe I do want to sit in the silence. Maybe it's one of the things I do sometimes is ask a question. What do you want me to know? What should I do about this particular situation? Or how should I view this group of circumstances, even something that's happening on the world stage? And then just go into that quiet and just listen. And it's always amazing what I come back with. So yeah, that is really awesome that you're writing about that and talking about that. But let's talk a minute about how from the healing frequency that could be I would say emotionally and psychologically healing for people because we're so we're so trapped right now. I mean, I'm very big on talking about physical healing, because I think there is a method of healing, out there, spiritual healing that is far beyond, our current uh, medicine that we have in this world. It can heal conditions that our modern medicine cannot. We hear about these things every day. But I think right now it's that mental, emotional healing that people need because I think folks are lost. There's so much hatred, there's so much division. It's very hard, and I just wrote something about this on social media this morning. It's very hard to speak to somebody that they don't take it and twist it into something either political or something that they find offensive. Oh, you're offending me. Uh, with your words, what you're actually saying is this, and everybody has such a strange way of hearing and computing the words of others. So, how can the healing frequency and what steps should people take to start healing themselves of this? Getting the mind out of the box, which I talked about on my little thing on social media, because we are trapped, we are confined in all these cultural biases and prejudices, and it's not helping us. People think this is the answer, this is enlightenment, this is what's going to help us and save the nation, save the world, and I don't see that happening, not the route we're taking. So speak on that a little bit, if you will.
Absolutely. I'll just briefly touch upon in this frequency or in this awareness, there is nothing that I have found that cannot be healed or transcended. Um, just as a short example, in the 14 years that I suffered from intense anxiety, I tried the conventional route, and I was actually told I'd be sitting up in my coffin having panic attacks at 24. But what that did for me is stoke a fire one way or another. I was going to find a way. And when I did experience that inner shift, I dropped I dropped that those years of conditioning, fear, and anxiety in a moment, in the twinkling literally of an eye, that third eye. So what we're witnessing right now in the collective is uh, the monster that the ego has become. But just as someone personally can go through adversities and a turbulent awakening process, this is what we're seeing on the collective. So the one thing to begin to address this is to realize that most of our responses, they're actually reactions, are conditioned. So it's very easy to read something, for example, on social media and then suddenly be triggered. But that trigger is egoic in nature. And when I say that is, it's something outside of us that is setting off a reaction. Now, the deepest part of you, that inner self, that stillness, there is no reaction. It just observes. So in getting into meditation, in practicing quieting the mind by becoming aware of the eternal moment of now, getting out of the past and future, are the beginning, the stepping stones to realizing higher dimensions of consciousness. And there's so much going on in the world right now that if we allow ourselves to get caught up in it so much, we end up losing our vitality and we end up reacting to almost everything. And what that does is it robs us of our peace, of our joy. If your focus is strictly on the outside world, there is no certainty there. There at the moment there certainly doesn't seem to be any peace there. So all of it is a reminder to take a step back, become aware of this moment, the eternal moment of now. And if someone has never attempted or tried meditating, I would suggest, just taking 5 minutes and detaching yourself from everything that's going on and just try to quiet yourself. And when I say that is just let go of what is holding on to you, because you can be certain what you are attached to has attached itself to you. So any sort of anger, fear, the reactions to it is what feeds the egoic mind. The way to begin to dismantle this automatic negative thinker, and I should mention this, there's nothing wrong with the ego. There's nothing wrong, because without that contrast, without that uh, um, darkness, I'll describe it as the third dimensional consciousness. Without that, we would not seek to know our true selves, or we would not seek another way. We wouldn't have that contrast. So there's nothing wrong with it. The problem arises when it starts dictating our lives, our emotions, and then starts spilling over into our relationships and health, which it did in my life. That's when we experience issues and problems. So taking a step back, even starting with 5 minutes and just letting go, turning everything off, and trying to get reacquainted with that innermost being. It's a lot easier than one would think. It's just a matter of intention. And to be honest, it's a surrendered state. So there's no resistance. So, for example, in this awareness, if a negative thought arises, I observe it, and then there's no reaction to it. And the funny thing is, before enlightenment, the ego is a source of suffering. After enlightenment, it's simply a source of contrast. It's a gift. You just see it. Oh, okay, that's from the past, or that's trying to project into the future. It's observed and it's dropped. It's let go. So you can get to the point. It's absolutely possible where an automatic negative thought comes, and you are so still within you, it actually dissolves. It doesn't even have the opportunity to become an emotion.
It's funny when you say let go. When I started meditating years ago, and I didn't really have any teachers to, tell me how to do it. And I had this, idea. I closed my eyes and I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to let go and just surrender. How do I do that? And this vision just came into my mind as I saw myself sitting in like the seat of a roller coaster or a carnival ride. I'm sure everybody's ridden on a roller coaster or some one of those rides at the fair or a carnival. You sit in the little seat or the car, the bar comes down and locks you in so you don't fall out or get thrown. And I just saw myself sitting in like this roller coaster car with the bar. I'm locked in and I'm holding on to it. And immediately it was like, I just kind of recognized, okay, this is where my thoughts are sitting. This bar is what I'm holding on to, all the fears and the turmoil or whatever else is going on, the ego. And I just visualized myself like opening my hands, releasing that bar, and my body becoming transparent and just rising up out of that roller coaster car and going up into the blankness, the stillness. So maybe that's a little imagery that might help some people. And they say, well, how do I let go? Sometimes you need some imagery to do that. And I feel that this was actually just kind of given to me, wherever it came from. The universe, God said, hey, uh, here's something that might help you release, let go, get out of all of that. And it was very helpful for me. And I think people should, and it's a great suggestion. Start out when people hear meditation. They think it's 20, 30 minutes, an hour, sitting there, being silent. Start out 3 minutes, 5 minutes, set a timer, and people don't understand when thoughts come into your mind during meditation, and they will, you acknowledge them, but you just brush them away. You don't sit there and go, oh man, I'm supposed to be meditating, and here I am suddenly thinking about feeding the cat. You don't get frustrated with yourself. Just see the thought, let it pass, go back into the stillness, and eventually those things will start coming to you. As you said, the wall falling down that has the word ego written on it. Just all these little symbols, words, pictures that really just take your mind and your thinking in such a different direction. You'll always come out of those sessions, even if it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, if you have the time, you'll always come out of it, seeing things much differently than you did before. And it can be a little bit of a challenge. I'm sure you'll agree. You'll come out of those moments and you feel stronger and you have a higher outlook, but it's very easy to slip back into the old ways and start getting afraid or anxious or nervous or angry. You have to stop yourself and refer back to that time of meditation, that time in the silence, and say, okay, remember what I learned. Remember how I'm supposed to act to this. The old paradigm is falling away. I'm not getting angry anymore. I'm not getting as filled with hate as I used to. And sometimes those changes can be very immediate, where it doesn't take much effort at all to bring yourself back to center. But sometimes it is certainly a struggle. You have to. You might go a few weeks or a month or so. Kind of getting that new perspective in place where you're not falling into the same old reactions that you used to. So let's, I think that's a good thing to kind of talk about, because when you talk about meditation, going into the silence, listening to the divine spark within, the guidance that comes from within ourselves, a lot of people always ask, how? I don't know how. Uh, what tips would you give people to make it easy? Because I know one of the things when I got into meditation, I read books, I got different audio books or guided meditations. And I always came away feeling kind of frustrated and annoyed because I was like, geez, it's like mental gymnastics. I don't feel like it should be this way. It's so overcomplicated. And I think that's what throws people because I think there's some spiritual teachers out there who think sounding overly complex makes it sound deep, like, wow, look at him or her, you're so deep, man, but, you know, uh, I think I think things are more simple than they appear. So how would you tell people, the most simple way to get into that state of mind, to enter the silence, let go of all the ego and all the nonsense, get into the healing frequency?
Certainly. And you made some incredible points, and there's one thing I'll want to touch on as well. There's no complexity to this. Just knowing in this latest book that I wrote, everything is about awareness. So you are, if you are aware of the present moment, your own awareness is who you're looking for. It's your own awareness that is the solution. So the ego is incredibly complex. It is, I like to describe it as the source of fear, but in essence, it's a multi headed dragon. It comes as doubt, uncertainty, fear, jealousy, the past, the future, all those things to keep your mind filled with uncertainty, doubt, the feeling of separation, being separate from source or God, when the realization is your inner being is that silent witness, which is your awareness. That's what you're looking for. So, enlightenment, first thing, is a destructive process. Nothing has to be added to you. No, what you need to do is, whether depending on the amount of pain, emotional pain someone is experiencing, is to surrender and let go of the things that are no longer serving you. And that could happen over a couple of months, a couple of years, or it can happen in an instant. So the first thing is to be aware, have the discernment to know when or what an automatic negative thought is. And we've been conditioned to experience these automatic negative thoughts, but because they've been going on for so long, we don't realize the impact it has on our lives because that conditioning has been allowed to layer. So the simple thing, the easiest thing to begin to do is be aware of the present moment and realize the reality of it. Because the past and future, they always arise and they are mind constructs. If you think of the ocean and the waves on the surface, these waves come and go and they're always changing, they're transient. And that is by design to keep us from realizing the eternal moment of now. If you come to the realization that everything that has happened in the past and everything that will happen in the future will always unfold in the now, that's number one. Number two is to begin to quiet the mind, is to become deeply presently aware wherever you are. So if you're washing dishes, you're aware that you're only washing dishes. If you're sitting at home reading a book, you realize you're only at home reading a book. And this is also called wakeful meditation. It's literally moment by moment. That's how I live my life. Because anything other than being aware of the moment, or you can use your breaths even, for example. So you let a breath out, that moment is gone. Come into a new moment. That's how you literally recreate yourself in every instant. So a large component is realizing the eternal moment of now. Another one is realizing that these automatic negative thoughts that arise, that come and go, who is the one experiencing them? It's you. That is the inner being. And that realization has tremendous potential. And just to touch back also, you had touched upon imagery and thoughts. That's very important. One of the things that happened to me, I went on to experience several mystical events and visions during a month process after my shift. And one was me standing on a field and had a crate without the lid appear in front of me. And suddenly I was placing anything from the past, whether it was fear, resentment, anger. I was placing it in that crate, and then I saw a lid appear on the crate and then chains wrapping around it. And then I ended up pushing it off the cliff and literally letting it go. And you can use anything. You can put it on a plane and see that crate let go, see it fly off, or imagine a sun and just sending that crate filled with those negative emotions. And it is because what is done in the quantum field, that is what is done on earth, on earth as it is in heaven. So what you envision and what you see in your mind, that is what translates then to you in this reality. So yes, using intention, because what you desire, and I think this is very important for people to understand, is the word desire. There's nothing wrong with desire. So if you're experiencing suffering from negative thinking, from being stuck in the past or the future, you have that desire for clarity. You have that desire for another way. You have that desire for peace. The word desire literally means from the Father. So it's important for people to realize what you desire for your life is what Source or God desires for you. And the closer you come in alignment with your inner self, that inner being, the more you will realize you are supported. You are completely supported. And what you desire, so what one has intentions for, can come to pass and can come to fruition. Some of the key ingredients are that desire for change and then the willingness. Because if we hold on to these roadblocks that we experience, or the past, or too attached to them, those are what can become speed bumps, to the road to awakening and making that shift into inner stillness. But it's important to know the imagery. It's an important aspect. So that's consciously thinking and using the mind consciously, or setting intentions on what you want for your life. But that's a whole other ball of wax. Now you start getting into law of attraction. But what's more important is realize who you are, come into that space of stillness, right? And then everything else will be added to you at that point, because now you're not resisting anything. You're in that state of allowing.
Yeah, that's awesome because, a lot of the old metaphysicians used to say your deepest dreams and desires are God's dreams for your life. But the world has a way of bleaching that out and say, oh no, you have to do this to be successful, or have this kind of job. All that other stuff is just a pipe dream. It's fantasy, and I think that's one of the first things that starts pulling us away from our true nature, our divinely given dreams, even our connection with the divine. We start to lose that childhood innocence and sense of magic in life and in the universe, and it becomes just so hardened. We have this very unsatisfying path set before us that may not be our choice or our first choice. And we just kind of march along saying, you see so many people. Is this all there is? I thought there'd be more. Well, I have it all, but I'm not really happy because it's not really what I want. And I think that's awesome to getting in touch with your deepest desires, and certainly getting back to that childhood innocence, getting back to that connection with God, where we are filled with our true selves, getting true inspiration for our lives, how to handle certain things in our lives. Again, comes right back to the beginning, going into that silence and listening, emptying ourselves of all of that, ego and fear and resentment and division that the world has put within us, especially recently. And it's very hard for people to do. And one thing I noticed, I speak a lot of being in the world, but not of it. Of course, you live in this world, you participate in the adventure of living. If there's a problem, you look for solutions. But I think when it comes to spirituality, people get confused because they think either you're suggesting that you're living in like a la la land, when you're spiritual, when you're connected with divine love, you just accept whatever happens. You're too passive. You don't take a stand. And that's not necessarily so. You have to have balance, where you're not letting that affect you on such an emotional or spiritual level, but you're also looking for solutions because we all have to live in this world. I just, said this in a short podcast I did this morning that was kind of clarifying some thought for some folks who think that it's just being too passive, letting life happen, do nothing, or they misunderstand what you're saying, and again make it something that's political, or make it something that's offensive. And maybe what I wanted to throw over to you, kind of a new voice of reason, and you know you're an intelligent guy. How do you suggest to people? Because I think this is importance, of monumental importance. How do how does people get in contact with that, inner silence, that inner guidance, but yet participate in living in this world, coming up with the solutions without looking at the solutions of more riots, more guns in the streets, more militias, more fighting one another, more storming the White House or the king's castle with swords and guns and torches. How do we how do we come to realize, that we can be in the world and try to be a solution or suggest solutions, but not necessarily be a part of it where we're so affected by all of that high emotion that's so negative and toxic?
Some excellent points there, and that I want to expand on. A couple of things to realize first. So when we're in that uh, third dimensional frequency of the ego, we're actually in the dreaming state. So in the dreaming state, we are operating between the past and the future, and we're reacting to things. And so from a I don't even want to use a higher perspective, because I don't even want to say one is better than the other, because it simply is. The ego simply is. But there's a difference between reacting and taking reactionary action and taking conscious action or conscious response. So so the balance is, okay, so you're seeing what's going on in the world. Okay, the first question to ask yourself, reacting inside, how how it's one thing if it has you, for example, okay, so you don't like what you're seeing, so you're going to peacefully, for example, protest. So you're going to do it consciously because this doesn't vibrate with who you are, versus planning on doing something violent, or attacking, because now you're coming from a different space, one of hate, one of fear, one of division. So you operate in this. How I operate is, I observe with what's going on and take whatever conscious steps that I can take. But ultimately, when there are things that are beyond your control, or beyond, um, basically, what you can do in the here and now, it's now becoming a question of faith and trust. So you can consciously and take steps towards doing things, but ultimately, what we're seeing from expanded awareness is, this is the awakening of humanity, and this is the growing pains that we're going through. And for some people, it will potentially bring them down lower in vibration, but that has the potential to then cause a spontaneous awakening, because it comes to a point where one simply cannot withstand the layers and the heaviness that come with so much reaction. And we've experienced a tremendous amount of uncertainty and a tremendous, not for one moment would I negate, there's uncertainty and there's a lot of fear going on, and people are simply confused um, and divided. So it's not negating that. You still honor that, but it's realizing, okay, how is my reacting to this going to help myself or others? You can choose to respond to it. So I'm feeling this fear, but being fearful and being in a state of anxiety. Okay, if you realize you're a conscious creator and your thoughts become things, and your thoughts have, science has proven it, your thoughts, your emotions do impact one's health. So, how is that empowering? It isn't. So, you can start by taking what's coming to you and being mindful and choosing to observe what's coming to your mind. And if it's not serving you, if it's fear, if it's anger, if it's division, if it's causing a reaction in you, if it doesn't serve you anymore, observe it and then release it. Because the opposite, the other option, is to continue to react to it. And we we are such powerful creative beings. We create on many levels, and all minds from a spiritual awareness, all minds are joined, and we are one with everything and everyone. And I've had so many examples where you think of someone, the next minute, the person is calling you, or you receive a text message. So we're all connected, and having more people embrace the light within them will have a tremendous impact on what's going on in the outer world. All change comes from within. Uh, you know, there have been wars that have gone on for hundreds of years, wars, strife, famine, and nothing has ever changed, because as a collective, humanity has not made that shift, that inner shift. When people awaken to their true selves, to that true inner being of who they are, then can change begin to happen on the outside world. But until people move beyond that egoic consciousness, which does nothing but divide, is fear based, is reactionary, we will continue to experience the same thing. Nothing changes. So the individual has an opportunity to, uh, when I use that word awaken, it's more like remember or realize who you are beyond thought and emotion, and that's your inner self, that deepest self. Because when you tune into that, through meditative practice, by being aware of the now, solutions arise as quickly as problems arise. So you now operate from a solution stance versus a reactionary one.
Yeah, and that's a very awesome point, because when people enter into that place of meditation, into the silence, or communing with that uh, divine spirit within them that is, one with them, it's part of their soul, it's who you are. It really does, like you said, what comes to you in those moments carries over into real time, real waking conscious life, that when you see problems happening, you start to get ideas and solutions that are, maybe for lack of a better word, higher in nature than what they used to be. And you actually surprise yourself by saying, wow, that's a completely different thought than what I used to have. And it actually works, and works better than my old brusque, angry, charge in like the bull in the china shop kind of attitude. But unfortunately, our time is coming to a close here. I could go on forever with talking about these things and different ways people could open up to divine love and the healing frequency, because I think it's so important. in this day and age. And as you said, we are on that cusp of an awakening. And I think we could do it so much more quickly and even peaceably if we just all got a hold of certain truths or ideas to carry us over this line where, we're just struggling trying to hold on to that old way of doing things, and it's not working. We have to wake up and, see a better way, or as I always say, the new horizon. But before we go, how can people get a hold of you or see your social media? Where can they find your books? Any information you want to give folks to look further into your work or follow you on social media?
Sure. Thanks, Paul. I'm on Twitter, so at Jiulio Consiglio. I'm also on Instagram, and my website is JiulioConsiglio.com. That's JiulioConsiglio.com. I'm also on Facebook.
And they can also get your books on Amazon and I'm sure any other websites where they sell ebooks or
Yes,
paperbacks.
yes, my apologies. Yeah, so my books are available through Amazon in Kindle and paperback, and The Healing Frequency and my first book, Challenge Your Thoughts, are available now. And Open Your Third Eye, it's available now for pre-purchase, but that will be released June 8th of 2021.
Awesome. And I think that's two books people should definitely put at the top of their reading list. I know I'm going to move them up on mine, The Healing Frequency and Challenge Your Thoughts, because they're definitely what we're talking about here today, what I talk about a lot on my show, getting out of the ego, getting out of the old ways of thinking, and yeah, and anything that can help. And I'm going to say these books could definitely help a lot of folks out there kind of see things from a much different perspective and get on the high road. We'll just leave it there. But Julio, thanks for doing the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Paul. I really appreciate it, and have a wonderful afternoon.
You too, and hopefully maybe one day we can do this again and delve even deeper into some of these topics because there's a lot to go over, and geez, we may need it before this is all over.
Absolutely. I would look forward to that. I would. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody out there, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. I'm Paul James Caden. This is the Infinite Journey podcast, and I'll see you next time.